I thought I would make this video to demonstrate something I've not yet seen demonstrated with CNC. So what we're using here are pine fence pickets, and I make a lot of signs in this same style setup. So what we've done here is we've got 4 of them that are cut to 22 inches wide. Our finished sign's going to be 18 inches. So we have quite a bit of extra room here. And what we're going to do is we're going to be making a circular sign. Now, one thing right off that you can probably see is that these fence pickets aren't exactly the same thickness. And that's not really a huge deal for what we're doing. Now, we are going to have one contour cut where we're going to cut this out. So I might fudge the thickness a little bit. Normally on fence pickets, we say they're 5/8, which is 0.625. So typically, I will make my depth to 0.625. And if I see in that final contour cut that it doesn't quite cut all the way through, we can just add to it just a little bit and go ahead and cut it through. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my Z height based on these 3 here are pretty close to the same. So I'm going to set my Z height right here to the lowest setting, what I feel like is the lowest setting. And then that should go ahead and cut this out completely. Now, as far as hold down goes, one great tip I got in one of the forums was just to use a brad nail. Now, I don't use brad nails. I have a cordless narrow crown stapler from Ryobi, and you can see we've got one little staple there, one little staple there. And I do that for all my boards, and I just feel like it's quick, it's easy, it's cheap. I don't need clamps for what we're doing. I've never had an issue with the board coming off or anything. It does take a little effort to, even with just those 2 screws, it does take us a little effort to get those off. But I have a little pry bar. That's why I only do the two corners, because I can come right here, pop this side up, and they come out really easily. I use 1-inch staples for this thickness of material, and it holds it down just fine. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and take a look at the artwork real quick and show you what we're making, and then we'll set it up to do its thing. So this is the sign that we're going to do. And I actually have an 1.5-inch frame that I'm going to cut and put on this sign as well. A little difficult to explain, but you'll see it in the finished product, of course. But we're going to have to cut out that frame separately. So, but that's what we're cutting out. So let me go over to my tool paths real quick here. And now you can kind of see what we've got going on. We're going to do an advanced V carve on the outside with a 1/4-inch end mill and a 60-degree bit. And then we have the V carve for the inside, same kind of setup. And then lastly, the contour cut around the outside perimeter. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to cut. So I will go ahead and get this set up in carbide motion and start cutting. Okay, so I thought I would show you after the first operation here what the sign looks like. So it's gone and done the first 1/4-inch end mill, and you can see I have a stop collar on it. And then I've got my 60-degree V-bit in there now, but I use this little guy because I do not have a bit setter for this machine just yet. So I am going to get one. I just don't have one right at the moment. But this is pretty clever because this is a little jig. It's a 3D printed jig by Pawn CNC that I bought. I forgot how much I paid for it, but I want to say it was like $30. But you could certainly 3D print you something real simple like this that would do the job. It'd be very easy to model. But at any rate, these stop collars don't cost hardly nothing. So that will help us keep the depth the same when we switch from bit to bit to bit. Okay, so we're just going to have to switch. So it's going to go ahead and do our 30 or 60 degree V-bit, and then when it comes back here, we got to put this back in to do the pocketing here, and then we got to put this back in to do the 60 degree on the interior details, and then one last time we'll have to put this in to contour cut. So I don't like the fact that we got to put the same bit in multiple times, but it will ultimately get the job done. So, and I will link to the bits that I'm actually using. I bought these off of Amazon, so I will link to those as well. But you can see it's looking good. So we'll get this fired back up and go ahead and run our next tool. So there is our completed carve. And you can see it really did work out pretty nicely. We'll get it cleaned up, get it sanded up, buff it up a little bit. And now what we have to do is design a ring that will connect all of these individual fence pickets. So I'm going to do a little bit of layout work on the computer, figure out how we're going to hold those 4 pieces of board together, exactly what we're going to do there. I don't know just yet, but we'll get that figured out, and then we'll go ahead and put this thing together. So that's kind of my next step, but you can see that it really turned out quite nicely up to this point. Alright, just real quick, we're going to create our border frame pieces. So we've got our fence picket down. These are 15 inches long. We're going to need 4 pieces to make up our border frame for our sign. And again, we just have them tacked down with a couple of staples, one on each corner, opposite one another. We're going to cut this out with our 1/4 inch end mill here. So we'll go ahead and get these cut out and go from there. So here I've cleaned up the edges just a little bit with my sander and just did a little bit of sanding right across the top. And what I've decided to do is go ahead and put this together first, and then we're going to use our little sanding sponge and try to catch some of the details on the inside. I do have these little wood chisels I use sometimes if I need to clean up just a little bit here and there. I will do that, but the sanding sponge usually does a pretty good job. This is a 120 grit sanding sponge here. Usually does a pretty good job in knocking off all the little stray fuzzies. But I decided to do this one after it's put together here. Alright, so we managed to get our 4 border pieces cut out. I'm going to take them with my random orbit sander, sand them up the edges a little bit, and then we'll show you how we're going to attach those to our sign. So now you can kind of see what this looks like with the border. Sanded those up a little bit, and I just have it sitting on here right now. The main thing is we have to offset this a little bit because we want to catch this piece, at least 2 pieces, okay, at least 2. So if we move this to roughly center, so you know, if you figure out exactly where center is, you know, the question then is, can we at least get 2 pieces together? So if we can staple here and here, and then here and here, and then this piece will connect to this piece, and so on all the way around. So we might be able to do it that way, but that's the main thing. Now if we were to move this piece over to here, then we can connect this piece, and this piece. Then we can connect 3. The only consideration then is whether or not, you know, we're fussy about the joint line. You know, would it look better straight up and down? And that's what I'm going to shoot for. I'm going to shoot for this joint line to be straight up and down rather than, you know, off kilter a little bit. But that's really just depends how, you know, how deep you go into it. But that's what I'm going to try and get that set, and then we'll kind of go from there. So what I would do to do that is I would just move this up, right, and find where my center is. So I could just grab my carpenter square. We know that this is 18 inches wide, so we'll find center. I'll use my bigger carpenter square, and I'll find out exactly where center is. And then once you get your first piece in place, that will kind of dictate how all the other pieces go around. So that's what I'm going to do and see what that looks like, and then I'll show you after I get it attached what the final decision is here. Well, that's kind of a bummer. I figured out exactly where center is, and that would get us center. So one thing that we could possibly do is make these pieces in 5 pieces, and that would give us a better connecting point. That's one possibility I could have looked into. But at the end of the day, this is just kind of a practice piece. So I think what I'm going to do, because it's got to be off kilter anyhow, I'll just go ahead and have it like that so we can connect 3 pieces to it. The other alternative would be just to go slightly past center and give us a little meat to connect those two. But I think I'm just going to go like that. And then we can connect this piece, and this piece. We'll use a little bit of glue. And what that does for us too, going all the way around, is it'll allow us to, once we put this piece into place, we can catch those 3 as well. And then we'll catch those 2, I guess. So anyhow, I'll go ahead and get those attached. A little bit of wood glue and some 1-inch staples. Okay, so here is what the sign looks like with the border applied. Now, I will confess that last piece, I just nipped maybe 1/8 of an inch off because it was just a little bit too tight. So that's often the case, though, on that very last piece, if we don't get those placed just exactly right. But it all looks really good for this first example. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this real quick. I may regret my choice of painting after it was all together, but I think we'll be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a little bit of paint, and then then we'll show you the finished product. So that's what it looks like all painted up. Now the next step is to let it dry, and then we're going to sand it all the flat surfaces, remove the paint, and that would reveal the final look of the sign. So I'll wait for it to dry, and then we'll take a sander to it and see what it looks like. Well, there you have the finished sign, and I was surprised it actually sanded off really easily. Probably took 5-10 minutes at the most, and really very happy with how it looks. And of course, we only have 2 fence pickets invested, so less than $5 worth of material, and we have a really cool looking sign. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope it inspires you to try some other types of things. We've done all kinds of signs with fence pickets, and we'll have some more videos on those too. But I really like using fence pickets because it gives a nice rustic look. So if we have a few imperfections, you won't really notice it. And of course, it's inexpensive, and people really like the look of this. Thanks for watching.